Hello everybody and welcome to a draft video here today. We're doing something a little bit different. So inspired by Ethan, Lord Tupperware over at Lords Unlimited, and I also saw Reed Duke doing this on Channel Fireball. We're going to be going over a draft that I've already done. I've already done the draft, I've already played out the games, and I'm going to be doing some commentary on that. And that's got a few advantages. Number one, well, I can skip to the good stuff. You know, if there's like a kind of some downtime in the game, I can be like, this part's not so important. Really lets you get to just the meat of the games and the important decision points. But also, I think I'll be able to kind of talk about my thoughts a little bit more in depth as looking back on it, already played the games. I'm not distracted by what's happening in the game at the time. Basically, I'll be able to use more brain power, giving you some more in-depth thoughts on all the plays of the game, the things I'm thinking about as we're playing. So, you know, this is something new for the channel, just kind of trying it out. If you like this format, please let me know. Also, if you like the other format where I just, talk my thoughts out as I'm actually drafting and playing, let me know that too. But yeah, let's just jump into this. So our pick one, pack one here. And by the way, one thing I do want to say about this draft is this whole video, probably going to be a little bit more focused. The interesting stuff is going to be the gameplay. The draft, I will say, was pretty straightforward, and you'll see what I mean by that as we get into it. Starting with our rare here that I do take here, Breach the Multiverse. Breach the Multiverse is just one of the best rares in the set. You get to 7 mana. You don't win on the spot, but a lot of times you do just win on the spot, reanimating your best thing, your opponent's best thing. And when I say you win on the spot, your opponent just scoops a lot of the time. So we're definitely going to take that here. Other cards in this pack that I like, there's a few. So I really do like the Marshal here. Marshal is Elf here. I think that's the second best card in the pack. It's not definitely a notch or two below Breach, and it's also multicolored, but this is like the reason to get into Knights. If Breach wasn't in the pack, I'd be very happy to start off my draft starting with a Marshal of Zelf here. And then past that, we've got a Volcanic Spite, very solid interaction spell. Assimilate Essence, I'd say is about in the same tier as Volcanic Spite. I think a lot of people might not think of them kind of in the same tier of a cheap interaction spell, but Assimilate Essence deals with a lot of things that Volcanic Spite doesn't. Also, for what it's worth, blue is the best color, red is the worst color. I don't think that matters all that much, because if you're playing Volcanic Spite, maybe you just like splash it, or have a light red splash in your mostly blue deck or mostly black deck or whatever. But I just want to point out that these cards are very close in my mind. And then there's Jury. Jury's another card that definitely not as good of a payoff for the Black-Red Sacrifice deck as Marshal is for the Blue-White deck. I think this card is kind of middling. You really have to have a lot of pieces, synergy pieces on the board, getting it going. Maybe you have some treasure and Jury grows really big. The problem with this kind of card, I think, in any set with a lot of really good interaction, and this is just true with any synergies, right? When you're trying to assemble engine pieces, is that the engine pieces get disrupted in some way very often, right? And so you can imagine a curve going Jury into Stormclaw Rager, which is the 3-mana black-red creature that sacrifices things and puts counters on itself, draws cards. You're like, oh, I'm assembling this engine. And then you just go, all right, remove your Stormclaw Rager. And now you got this Jury sitting there. So it's a fine card, but nothing I'm too excited about. More of a card I kind of want to pick up on the wheel if I move into black-red at some point. So we just take the Breach. And then I get past the pack with Hoarding Broodlord. So somebody took a card that they thought was better than Hoarding Broodlord. I'm not exactly sure how this happened, because it looks like a common was taken, right? Because we've got 1, 2 uncommons, our flip card here, our battle, and also our multiverse legend. So not exactly sure. Maybe somebody just timed out, but I think if they just timed out, the auto picker would have taken the rare. So one thing I have noticed is I think when there's some really a card that's really expensive, some drafters, more intermediate or beginner drafters tend to be like, oh, it's so expensive, I don't want to play that, especially if they're coming from constructed with like 8 mana. That's so much, so I don't want to dive into maybe why somebody passed this. We're just going to take it, be very happy. If this Broodlord wasn't in the pack, it's a pretty close pick between Afara's Dispersal and Deadly Derision. Also, there's a Hail of Fortune in the pack, but I would take the good monocolored cards over the good multicolored cards, because I think that Dispersal is actually a little bit better than Deadly Derision for what it's worth. Deadly Derision helps us, keeps us black, and it's very good once you take a black bomb to, stay the course, so you can be more flexible, right? Instead of going black card, black card, red card, or whatever, just get deep into black, and then you can figure out what's open, and maybe green's the most open color. You pair that with your black cards. That's a nice thing to do. So I think if it came down to it, I would probably take the Deadly Derision over the Afara's Dispersal. Great pack overall, right? Like, Aerialist, Cleansing, Forger, those are all great, but we're going to take the rare, of course. Then we get to this next pack here, and basically this pick for me is between Nezumian Formant and Afara's Dispersal. These cards are both excellent, and it's kind of the opposite of the last pick, right? But before, I was like, okay, there's an Afara's Dispersal, and there's a Deadly Derision, and, that was the pack with the Broodlord, we took that. But if it came down to those two cards, I was going to just take the Deadly Derision, because it's close enough in power to Dispersal, and it goes with our previous black cards. Here is kind of the opposite. You always have to kind of weigh this. It's always kind of tricky. Here, I believe that Dispersal is enough of a better card to take over a black card. I like the Zoom In format a lot. I actually think it's a close to a premium 2-drop. I'm happy to play, 3 or 4 of these if I can get my hands on them. But I do think Dispersal is that premium. So I made the decision here to take Dispersal. I think you could take Informant too. That leaves you a bit more flexible, but I went with Dispersal here. Other cards in the pack, there's Zerda, the Dawn Waker, which is actually like a fine, white aggro card. Same with Phyrexian Censor, pretty good white aggro card. Not really looking at Companion Zerda, it's kind of hard to do. And there's like, Mutagen Connoisseur and Invasion of Pyrolia. I like those 2 cards too, but not for what we're doing here. I wouldn't consider them here, of course. And I ended up just taking Dispersal here and being pretty happy. Maybe we are blue-black, I'm still flexible. Maybe we're black-green, maybe we splash the Dispersal or something. We get to this pick 4 here, and we got, a pretty easy pick, I think, just taking the Final Flourish. But there are a few other cards in the pack that I kind of want to talk about. Seal of Existence is one that I actually don't like a ton. It's this kind of card is usually really good, right? The 3 mana, white enchantment, get something out of the way, just like exile it for good. It's not even like a Realm Breaker's Grasp where it keeps the thing on the battlefield. I think the big issue with this card is it's a sorcery speed removal spell. And sorcery speed removal spells, in my mind, in this set in particular, are so much worse than the instant speed removal spells. Partially because one of the reasons the instant speed removal spells are so good is to blow at the things like Order of the Mirror or the expensive flip Phyrexians. That's what I really want to be doing with my instant speed removal spells. The opponent goes, all right, invest 4 mana. I go, nope, sorry, Final Flourish. You lose your turn, basically. I've killed your creature, and, that's just such a swing in the game at that point. Seal from Existence is, you can't do that. And it answers most things, which is nice, but sorcery speed, I just want to kind of make that distinction. So I don't actually think this pick is that close. Obviously, if I'm just talking if these were both colorless cards, I do think Final Flourish is quite a bit better. I also like the Invasion of Asgol, I think, for Black-Red, and Black-Red is one of the decks I've been drafting quite a bit lately, now that blue has been a little more contested. People kind of know that blue is a little more open. This card's just nice. You play it early, they sacrifice their thing, you get to attack it, you get a nice little creature. So not a card, again, I would really consider overtaking a good monocolored card like Final Flourish, but blue card I would probably take if Final Flourish wasn't here. All right, and then we get to pick 5, and I kind of go, okay, well, we got past that Broodlord, and, we got a 4th pick Flourish, which isn't like a huge thing. It's a common. People might have taken rares and uncommons over it, but now I go, all right, we might be in a pod that's undervaluing the good cards, because we get a 5th pick Artistic Refusal. This is one of the best uncommons in the set. Not a black card I'm willing to take here, right? I might take a comparable black card. Again, if there was a Deadly Derision in this pack, I'd probably take that over Refusal just to stay flexible. But Refusal is just awesome. Very happy to have that. And now, I am thinking, all right, well, if this is a pod that's going to let me have a good blue-black control deck, I'm not going to turn that way. I'm very happy about that. Other cards in the pack I like the Sandstalker Moloch. I think this card is, you should just main deck this card in all of your green decks. It's a pretty good early pick. It's pretty likely you're going to face an opponent that's either blue or black. When this thing goes off, like when you get to grab a permanent, it is quite a strong card. So let's say the Refusal wasn't here. That's what I would probably take here. But again, I'm just happy to slam the Refusal. All right, we get to pick 6 here, and nothing I'm really very excited about. I don't think Phyrexian Gargantua is one of the better expensive cards. Like, yeah, it comes in, it draws you some cards, and the 4/4 body's a little bit slow at that point. I have actually found that when my opponent casts this, sometimes I'm like, ooh, yes, you dealt yourself 2 damage. That gives me just enough, a little bit more damage that I needed. Get it with my flyers, and maybe takes a turn off the clock. It's a solid card. It's a card that I'm not sad about playing. I guess the way I would put it is, I'm not hoping to have this card in my deck, but I'm also not too sad if it makes my deck, right? There's not enough space, not a lot of space for the expensive cards, and this isn't one of the better ones, not one I want to take early, but it is the best card in that pack for us. And then we get to pick 7, and there's a Scornblade Berserker. And Scornblade Berserker, one of the best black uncommons. So the black just keeps flowing, and again, I'm just like, okay, this is one of those pods that maybe is just going to let us have it all. Also a blue-black dual land in the pack, but I don't like taking a dual land over a really good card. Maybe if this wasn't here, I would take it over the Corrupted Conviction, but definitely just taking the dual land. And now we get into Assimilate Essence. Very happy about that. Now we're just, now I'm at the point where I'm like, all right, I'm going to be black-blue until the draft tells me otherwise. Maybe blue gets completely cut off, or I open a green bomb or something. I do think Assimilate Essence is pretty close to Streetwise Negotiator, the green creature here. I like those cards pretty equally, but, with blue cards in the pile, nothing wrong to take another Essence here. All right, and then pick 9, we get the Aetherblade Agent coming around, so I'm very happy to pick that up. Nice little 2-drop. There's the Halo Charge Scab in the pack, and I've had some people ask, when do you want to play Halo Charge Scab? Well, the number one time I want to play Halo Charge Scab is when I have Breach the Multiverse, because that's the 2-card combo. You get to mill them out for 10, mill them out for 10 again. You basically win, and it's not close. Even if they have good interaction to kill the creatures you reanimate, you're just going to kill them. But I don't think I need to prioritize it, basically. I'm going to prioritize a cheap interactive creature, something to block, something to keep me alive while I cast my expensive things here. if I don't have Breach, I will play Hail Charge Scob in a deck that has a lot of really good spells to get back. Like currently this deck right now with a Flourish, a Dispersal, and, you know, maybe a Symbolic Essence isn't the best thing to get back because they know it's coming. But if I've got, you know, 7, 8, somewhere in that range of quality spells, it's a playable. It's not a card I'm dying to play, but it can be your 23rd card at that point. Also, worth noting, there's a Pest here. I still could see myself pivoting into green. Like, I don't think it's out of the question, but, you know, we did note a late Pest. There was that, the 2-drop, the green 2-drop we saw in the last pack. So I still have my eyes open for green if that becomes an option, if blue ends up being cut. All right, then we get to pick 10 here, and this is the confirmation I needed for, okay, I am in one of these pods. We wheel a Skyclave Aerialist with, you know, if you're in a pod with 7 other people who kind of know what they're doing, this basically shouldn't happen. I already hear the comments just like, oh yeah, streamer luck. And, you know, I can't say this always happens to me, right? This does happen. I draft a lot, so sometimes I do get pods like this. It just so happened to be, this is the one I was recording. This is not a common occurrence. So now I'm kind of in the idea that, like, okay, I can tell I'm at a table with people that might not know that blue's as good as it is, and maybe I can, you know, even if green might be a little bit open, I can still probably bully my way into a good blue-black deck. That's where I'd like to be, so very happy to pick up this area list here. And, you know, the hits keep coming. We wheel a Nezumi Informant. Very happy to have that. Just another good cheap thing to supplement our bunch of expensive things, especially when we have Artistic Refusal. You do want to pick up some cheap creatures to make sure you can convoke that pretty reliably. You know, Mutagen Connoisseur in the pack. I like that card quite a bit too. Phyrexian Censor, again, but, you know, that's very far away from what we're doing, so not in consideration. And the last few picks of the draft didn't really matter too much, but just looking at my pile here, this is like, I'd be happy with this card quality at the end of pack 2. Basically, like, this is a heck of a pack 1. So, this is just fantastic. And basically what I'm thinking now is, well, I know my archetype it's probably going to be blue-black. I'm just kind of thinking, okay, what do I need to prioritize now? Well, I've got the top end. I've got the Breach, and I've got the Broodlord. I've got the Gargantua if I really need it. I've even got 2-drops, and I've got good interaction. So there's nothing I'm really missing out on here. When you've kind of navigated into your lane, and I think we kind of have, you kind of move from the navigation side of the draft going, okay, what deck am I trying to be, to the deck building side of the draft where it's like, okay, I need to, you know, pick up X number of removal spells, X number of 2-drops. And, you know, that's kind of shifts and changes for what archetype you're playing. But for, you know, your classic blue-black deck, I'd want, you know, maybe another 2 good premium 2-drops, maybe 3 or 4 more premium interaction spells. My top end's pretty covered. Maybe if I pick up something that's just like awesome, excellent, I'm like, all right, cool, I'll pick up another bomb, but I don't feel like I need to pick up that much more expensive stuff at this point. And okay, so we open up pack 2 here, and they can't all be winners, right? We opened up a pack with the best card by far is Kroxa, Titan of Death's Hunger. That card is quite good. I could just take that, just, you know, for the gems, basically, because the rest of the pack cards in this pack I'm not that interested in. There is, you know, there's a few blue 2-drops floating around. There's Zhalfir and Shapecraft. There's Oracle of Tragedy, which I think this card, by the way, is okay, but not one of the better 2-drops for blue-black. The thing about this card is, yeah, it you know, it filters you, and it's a, you know, the 1/3 is a little bit not great, especially in the grindy matchups. You don't really want a 1/3 body. It just kind of doesn't do enough. The looting is nice, but it's not that important because there's a lot of really good ways to filter your draws and get card advantage. I find that, you know, the looting or just any card filtering that isn't card advantage has diminishing returns in some regards, right? Because as you're filtering your hand, well, it's going to get better and better and better up to a point where it's like, well, I'm just filtering my hand. It can't get that much better, right? So this is a fine effect. It's a fine 2-drop. I actually do take it here. And the reason I take it over the other 2-drops, like maybe the Expedition Lookout or the Order of the Mirror, is, you know, there's some blue-black decks that just draw most of their decks. So being able to, you know, just recur some of your great cards, that is pretty nice. And so I'm hoping not to play this card, but again, I am okay if I have to play it. Other cards in the pack, there's Gifts of Completion, which is kind of a clunker. I'm not that big of a fan of this card. You're basically paying 4 mana for 3/3, which, you know, it's passable, but not a card that I'm all that excited about, especially in like a blue-black control deck. Yeah, there's the 2-drops. I actually do want to note Expedition Lookout just quickly. As 2-drops have kind of, you know, dried up, or like a lot of the good ones, you don't get the premium ones as late as, you know, as late as in this draft. I found that Expedition Lookout is a card that I'm kind of okay playing if my deck has enough mill both players kind of cards. Like I have the Invasions of Amonkhet, I have Unsealed Necropolis. Like if this thing can turn on by turn 6 or something, it's a card I'm actually not too sad about. So, you know, not a card I would take here, hoping to wheel it or something, but just noting that it's a card I've played a little bit more as the format's gone on. All right, then pack 2 pick 2 here, we get a Invasion of Amonkhet. I'm just gonna slam that. That's awesome. Also, under Forest Dispersal, would be very happy to take that, but you know, Invasion of Amonkhet is the best uncommon in the set. I'm just very happy to take that. There's an Ingin Asika, that card's solid. There's a Raft, that card's solid, but you know, we're just gonna take our Signpost uncommon here. And then pick 3, we slam a Preening Champion. Nothing really in the fact that rivals Preening Champion. It's just, you know, the best common by a lot. If that wasn't here, I'd probably take the Tidal Terror. Tidal Terror is like a fine finisher, but again, we're kind of set on finishers. We don't really need another one, so just take the Preening Champ, and it's a really good follow-up to Invasion of Amonkhet too, right? That's one of the best 1-2 punches going in. Preening Champion on 3, Invasion on 4, be able to attack it, flip it within 2 turns. So yeah, very happy about that. Moving on to pick 4 here, I do have kind of an interesting decision between Temporal Cleansing, Unseal Necropolis. I think even Gloomfang Mauler is like, you know, not quite in that same tier. Right? It's in the conversation, but I do think it is between Cleansing and Unseal. I did pick up the Unseal here. I've got some pretty good things to get back. You know, I might have milled my Broodlord, or just, you know, as the game goes on, I trade off my Nezumi Informants, and even in low creature count decks, I do like this card quite a bit. Like, I actually ended up with a pretty low creature count, spoiler alert, and I still ended up playing this card because if you're playing a deck that goes really long, you're going to find, you know, you're going to see most of your deck. It's going to go to the grave. You can trade off. You don't mind running out, you know, my Broodlord. My opponent kills it. Great, I get it back. So I've had some questions about, like, do you have a creature limit when you play this card? Do you have to be a certain creature count? And it does get better if you have more, because you can cast it earlier. But in a deck like this one, that I think the way this deck's going is a very heavy blue-black control deck, my games are going to go pretty long. So maybe I'm not going to cast this very early, but it is just an additional copy of my best cards. And even if I just, like, cast it to fill up my graveyard a bit, get back a Preening Champion when I need to, it's not the worst. And I like the Temporal Cleansing a decent amount too, especially when you have other mill cards. You can go top your thing, mill you get rid of whatever you top for good. But, you know, I think I'm okay on interaction spells yet. This is a good interaction spell, but not one of the more premium ones, so I don't feel like I need to prioritize a kind of, you know, okay removal spell, but not one of the better ones. Pick 5 here, we get a Isaac Ataxius. Very happy to pick that up. Just one of the best blue commons, so, you know, just gonna slam that. Also, an Aetherborn Agent, another Unseal. I'm not gonna take the second one yet, and I think a lot of people might take the Agent over Isaac Ataxius, but I love Eyes. I think that Agent is good, but it's kind of interchangeable with a lot of the other good 2 drops. Eyes is a little bit less replaceable. Just having a card that you can play early, get a little bit of card advantage, have that 3/3 blocker, it is pretty important. All right, and then pick 6 here, another kind of whiff of a pack, nothing too exciting. Basically, it's between, I'm looking at my creatures, I'm looking at that Corrupted Conviction, I'm going, do I have enough things that are good to sacrifice? I've got the Informant, I've got the Token from Preening Champion. I end up just taking the dual land, the black dual land, like the black-white land. I think, okay, you know, maybe I open up an Invasion of New Phyrexia or something, I splash that. I think my deck's good enough that I'm not that likely to need to splash, but I can also kind of pick up a Corruption anytime, and it's also not going to be a key card for this deck or anything. Pick 7 here, another pack that isn't that exciting. There is a Wicked Slumber, but this is more for aggro decks. I like Wicked Slumber a lot in blue-white, where you can, like, get on board early, tap down the 2 big things, get attack. In your control decks, it kind of just buys you time. You don't really want that. You want the hard removal spells. So I ended up not taking that, just taking Skittering Surveyor. I don't mind playing Skittering Surveyor in these decks. You can sacrifice it to your Flourish, or, you know, if I do play a Corrupted Conviction, maybe I do end up splashing. So it's a fine card here. I like it better than any of the other blue cards in the pack. All right, another pack where, you know, there's not much going on. And I think that probably what's happening here in pack 2 is the people that, you know, I picked up on a lot of excellent blue and black signals pack 1. That's going to happen where the person next to you also probably, you know, because they were so strong, there were so many good blue and black cards in pack 1. Some of them got past to the person beside us, and they kind of went, okay, let's, you know, move to blue black. And that's going to happen, right? In pack 2, the packs go the opposite ways. Whatever's open in pack 1, you should kind of expect not to be open in pack 2. I take a failed conversion here. I think it's a slightly better interaction spell than Stasis Field. Stasis Field has the problem of, you know, the creature stays on the battlefield, they can convoke with it, they can sacrifice it. It's got all the problems of those counter removal spells that just keep the thing on the battlefield. At least with failed conversion, you know, it is more expensive, but it gets the thing off the battlefield for good. Again, I'm probably not going to have to play this card because our deck does look awesome. We only need, what, 5-6 other good playables at this point, but it's the card I'm most likely to play. All right, and then I pick up a Conviction here. You know, I just, you know, and then more shade on Gift of Completion. I just don't want that card in my deck. And I do think that Conviction looks pretty good here. I could play it. Once again, just like I just said, I don't think I'm going to have to play it, but maybe pack 3 ends up terribly for me, and it's going to be a fine card. And then we get a gift. We get a Farthest Versatile Wheeling, so yeah, just... very, very happy to slam that. I'll play as many copies of that as I can get, and yeah, be on my way. Pick 11, nothing really. I, you know, pass some cards that maybe people see Quende as a signal and want to get deeper into white, but you know, that pack isn't really irrelevant. And I think the rest of this pack kind of has, yeah, just a bunch of things that I'm not that interested in, so I'll just skip through that. Going to our pack 3 here, we open a Deadly Derision, so good, happy to pick up a premium interaction spell. If this wasn't here, I'd probably take the Ichor Drinker. I think it's pretty close between that and the Agent, the Aetherblade Agent in the pack. I like Drinker as just a little bit of a road bump. You know, the Agent is solid too, but I just think that, getting a Trump in with the Ichor Drinker, being able to bring it back, it's good for sacrifice synergy, stuff like that. Like, given my choice, I tend to take Drinker over Agent in a vacuum, and I think I would take it here as well. There's nothing that really pushes me to taking Agent over Drinker, but of course, we're very happy taking the Derision. Pick 2 here. I see another Isaac Ataxius. Gonna slam that here as well. There's also a Vanquish the Week in the pack. I wouldn't hate that card, but, I do think Eyes is enough better, and again, we're good on interaction. Freewheeler, a card that I really despise. I think this card is really quite bad. I don't think you should put that card in your deck. It's got all the problems of things that, the creatures that are expensive to flip, and it's a 4-drop that doesn't have that much impact when it comes in. Just the card I'm not looking to play in a set with such good interaction spells that you just get blown out with this thing so often when you try to flip it, or when you just cast it and they cast their 2-mana interaction spell and you didn't get any value, right? That's, you mill 3, but that's like marginal value, so not really looking at that card here. All right, pick 3 here. We see another Fires Dispersal. I'm quite happy about that. There's also Transcendent Message in the pack, the rare, the Draw X with Convoke. This card is pretty good in a deck that's creature heavy, right? Kind of like what I was talking about with the Knights deck. In my deck, it's not very good. I just don't have a lot of creatures. But if you're playing Token Makers or just like your early parts of the games are going 1, 2, 3, I do think that card is pretty good. You just draw a ton of cards with it. But in this case, I just take the good interaction spell. Get to pick 4 here. We see a kind of late Pollucurrent door, and we did see kind of hints of green being open. I'm going to take Corruption of Tawashi here, and this is a card I do want to talk about just quickly. Corruption of Tawashi is a card that the higher you are in ranking, the more I think you should play it, which is kind of odd because that's not often the case, right? Usually cards, I would say that the higher you are in ranking, like Mythic and Diamond, the narrower the range of cards that you can play are. Because when you're in lower ranks, you can kind of get away with some stuff that you wouldn't be able to in the higher ranks, where people punish you for playing kind of clunkier cards. And this is kind of a clunky-ish card, not so good against aggro decks. And the reason I say it's better in higher ranks is because in those higher ranks, people aren't drafting green-white aggro, red-white aggro very often. And this card is very, very good in the grindy matchups against another blue-black control deck, against, any kind of green mid-range matchup. And so I've been happy with this card. You want about 7 things that trigger it. I'm just short of that right now. So I'm going to take it here as the card I'm most interested in here, and I might end up playing it, I might not. It depends if I pick up more, more eyes, more flip cards like Aerial, stuff like that. All right, so pack 3 not giving us too much, but luckily the pack 1 made up for more than enough. We just got to take a bunch of awesome cards. Again, nothing here I'm really that interested in. I think it's just the Mauler here over the second Unseal. I did take the second Unseal. Yeah, looking back, I probably should have just taken the Mauler. I don't think I'm going to play 2 Unseals in this deck. Like, we're just so creature light. I think we've got, like, what, 7 at this point? Sure, we've got a bomb or 2 to get back, but yeah, I think... Not that I think Mauler's going to make the cut, but the second Unseal just doesn't make that much sense to me. And then I do have an interesting pick here, pick 6, between Inga and another Assimilate Essence. I opted to take the Assimilate Essence here, just as one more good cheap interaction spell. I like Inga a fair amount, but I do think just, as many of the cheap interaction spells as you can get, I'm happy to get. I'm not too worried about winning the game. We've got, Breach, which is, like I said, an auto-win a lot of the time. We've got Invasion, we've got Premium Champion, we've got these tokens from Isaac Ataxius, and just all this Incubate going on. So I'm not... even though I'm creature light, I'm not win condition light. Pick 7 here, I actually take the Traumatic Revelation, I believe, over Render Inert. I think to play Render Inert, you want like 2 or 3 battles of your own. And Traumatic Revelation is actually a card I found in these blue-black control decks to be pretty good. Like, the information you get from seeing your opponent's hand really lets you know what you have to spend your Assimilate Essence on. Or, if they have a protection spell, when to not get blown out, but when you go for, an expensive removal spell. So, I do like it paired with a lot of other interaction. Not a card I want in, like, my black-white deck or anything like that, or like my... or my red-black deck, really. But in blue-black, I think it's a solid playable. And then I picked up another Isaac Ataxius there for what it's worth, making this Corruption of Tawashi a little more playable. Pick 9 here. We got some options. We got Tidal Terror, or Aetherblade Agent, or Ichor Drinker. I honestly think any of them would be fine here. I ended up taking the Ichor Drinker because that's another way to flip or trigger the Corruption of Tawashi. Aetherblade Agent is too, but it's a little more expensive to do that, so I just went with the cheaper option, basically. And we have a Vanquish the Week. I think I ended up not playing it because we ended up with just, like, a ton of playables, but that's pretty much the deck. I will go to building here, and there's a few things. Yeah, I took another Traumatic Revelation, but the rest of the pack didn't really have that much. I took Emery for gems here, or the third Traumatic Revelation. So let's just go to the build, and we'll see what we did. So here's what I settled on. As you can see, just basically all of my best cards. The things that I was considering was maybe I wanted one more top end card with the Phyrexian Gargantua. Maybe I wanted one more removal spell with the Vanquish the Weak. I was comparing it to my worst card here was probably Unsealed Necropolis. I did mention I don't mind Unsealed Necropolis in these creature-like decks still, but it is, I would say my 23rd card here. I still think it was probably better than Vanquish the Weak because it's, I've got other good interaction. I don't need kind of a weaker interaction spell. So that's the choice I made, but I could see, any number of cards like Moment of Truth being that last playable, or even Skittering Surveyor. I think that would be fine too. All right, and let's get into some gameplay now. So our opening hand here for our first game, quite good. We're on the draw, but with a bunch of interaction spells. I don't mind being on the draw. As far as Dispersal, one of the reasons it is so good is because it's so good on the draw, right? Getting that tempo boost back. We draw our Breach the Multiverse, which now the game is just about that on my side. I just want to be able to cast that card, resolve it nicely. Opponent plays a Preening Champion, which, hate to see it, but that's okay. I draw Dramatic Revelation here, and this is kind of interesting. I could choose to Final Flourish the Preening Champion, give me some time, but I decided, I've got a bunch of cheap interaction. I can take a little bit of damage here. I'd rather Dramatic Revelation them now, not let them resolve like a good 4-drop or just something that I can't answer with creature interaction, see what's going on there. And we go for that, and we actually see quite a powerful hand, if I recall. So we see Inga and Asika, also Invasion of Omnicat, also some cards that I can't take, Glistening Dawn being double green, which is interesting. They don't have green yet. I just take the Invasion here. It's just the most powerful thing. It's the card that they can cast. I think it's pretty straightforward. But just, again, having this information on what they have in hand, I think does help me going forward in this game. They drew up the green source here, so they get to just play the Inga and Asika, and it's like, all right, yeah. A little bit unfortunate, but what can you do? I'm not going to bounce this Preening Champion here. I do bounce the token, though, because I do want to hit my land drops. I think, and it also takes away a mana source from the opponent, right? So I definitely want to make sure hitting those land drops here. And I have a decision. Do I want to bin the Assimilate Essence? And I kind of go, yeah, you know what? I don't need that. It's not going to counter anything important. And this is where it's interesting, right? Because if I knew that their hand, or sorry, if I didn't know their hand, I would probably keep the Assimilate Essence, and it would have hurt me. So this information, knowing that they have Glistening Dawn draw spell, stuff I can't cast with the Essence, or can't counter with the Essence, I just go, okay, you know what, I'm just going to dig to my more important cards, dig to my lands, so I can actually cast the Breach. I don't have to waste a draw step drawing this Assimilate Essence here. Alright, and here I activate, and I think it's reasonable to do, because either they take it and I draw a card, or they trade it the Inga and Asika, and I think either of those I'm pretty okay with. I'm not holding up mana for anything in particular, so I just go for it, and they do end up trading, which I think makes sense here, right? It's not like this Inga and Asika is going to draw them any cards right now. It's they can't cast Glistening Dawn off of Inga and Asika. It's only they can only cast creature spells off of it, so it's a fair trade from them. And I'm pretty happy about it too, though, because that just means we prolong the game, we can get to me casting Breach, and that's all fine. You could argue that it's worth not giving it up there, not attacking, because then if I draw a land, I can't cast Artistic Refusal next turn. But, I think it's a fair trade-off still. All right, they draw Chitsuko, and so, they can cast their Meaning of Minds this turn, but I'm still feeling pretty okay about this. They're still, they still have to hit their green source to cast their Glistening Dawn, and even if they cast their Glistening Dawn, they are, they're going to be able to, I can bounce one of them and kill another one if I draw anything to sacrifice to Flourish. So we're under a little bit of pressure, but not a ton. I do decide to kill this Preening Champion right now. I do feel like I'm taking a little bit too much damage here. I'm trying to get to turn 7, and, land 7, that's later than turn 7, generally, because, I missed land drop here. And so I just go, well, I can't take 3, just lessen that clock a little bit from them. They attack, I say, I'm not going to bounce this thing. I want to hit land drops, but I also want to keep up Assimilate Essence, and, for that was great to be able to have that nab that, so that was very lucky. Pointing out why Assimilate Essence is quite strong in the format, just being able to nab the, the expensive bombs. Most of them, anyways. Opponent plays Tangled Skyline, which, it's a card I care about, but I can always bounce it with a Forest Dispersal. Nice to have an answer. That 6th land was really, really good, because I think keeping up Artistic Refusal for as long as I can at this point is pretty important. The cast Invasion of Pyrule, I say, all right, you know what? You can have that. I think about it for a second, but I'm really, really careful about where I spend my Artistic Refusal. I kind of refuse to, no pun intended, but I often refuse to cast it unless it's something that's just like, I can't let that resolve, right? I'm very picky about it. You could argue, too, that just, I want to hit those land drops. I want to be able to cast Breach in the coming turn. But, I think that there's ways that it goes haywire, right? If they happen to just jam something else that's important here, I do start to fall behind. Maybe I don't hit my lands for Breach. Maybe my Breach misses in some regards, where I can only miss so much because they have a Jiniga Taxis in the yard. But I could hit 2 things that like Jing attacks is something else, and that's not just game winning in with given their position, given they still have Glistening Dawn in hand. So I'm just gonna play this a little bit slower, still kind of fine. I get to kill this token, very happy about that. And here's an interesting decision, right? I have a Forest Dispersal, I have Eyes, and I actually choose to bottom both of these because they're just not what I need. I need a land to cast Breach. I think that's more important here. And if I cast either of these, I can't also cast Artistic Refusal next turn. So I'm just going to bin them, just get to my land, because I think that's more important than these cards here. Yeah, we get to something that's not as good, but it lets us hold up Refusal still, which is kind of nice. And here we go. Opponent has yet another awesome card that I was very happy that I saved the Counter Spell for. Didn't feel like I needed to counter Invasion of Pyrelia. Here's the land too, so we get to cast this Breach, and I think this was a game-winning Breach if I remember correctly. I think the opponent ended up just scooping, but we'll see how it goes. So I cast the Breach, both players mill 10, and I actually contemplated a second, should I actually get the Gyruda? Because I have 9 cards in the library. Oh, this will mill me down to 5, and I'm like, one of the ways I lose this game maybe is by the opponent casting like 2, like Unseal the Necropolis, or, 2 cards that mill both players. I decided that was a minor downside. I think I was just gonna go for the Gyruda and the dragon. I milled my my giant tutoring dragon, but they eventually ended up scooping here, and yeah, that's the game. All right, game 2 here. This is actually kind of a funny one, kind of an interesting one as it played out. So, good hand once again. Cheap interaction spell. Have the nice curve of going Praying Champion into Invasion of Amonkhet on turn 3. I'm most likely just going to cast this Assimilate Essence on anything that my opponent casts. Just, keep pace with them. They don't cast anything, so I just go for the Breeding Champ. Totally fine just to run that out. They play Invasion of Zendikar, which, it's a thing, but I'm very happy that they didn't cast anything super board affecting or something that, like, it basically, this gives me free reign to just cast Amonkhet and go on with it. But I actually draw something that changes my opinion, or changes my decision. Because I drew a 2-drop, I still get to use my mana efficiently. I'm going to hold up Assimilate Essence this turn, right? Because not only do I get to flip the Amonkhet next turn and still hold up Essence, but this turn, they just cast the ramp spell, they're at 6 mana. I would assume they have something pretty nasty to play. They didn't actually have anything nasty to play, and I just say, okay, that's fine, that's good for me. I go for the face here. I kind of just wanted to see what was going to happen before they did anything, because I imagine if they don't have a creature, they're not playing anything on board, they probably have a removal spell. They didn't. That's fine. I'm just going to cast Eyes. I think I could have cast Amonkhet too, but I'm just going for the more conservative line here. Like, if I go for Amonkhet and the cast 2 interaction spells, that's not great for me. Basically, this turn comes down to, I think they probably have an interaction spell because they didn't cast a creature or something board affecting. So I want to go with the line that punishes that, right? Because if I go with something, again, like I said, if I play the Amonkhet and they have 2 interaction spells, I do fall behind there a little bit, or at least that line lines up less good than me just casting the Eyes here, and I think his casting Eyes is a perfectly fine thing to do. I'm still pressuring them, I'm still adding the board, I'm still pushing my game plan forward. I can always cast Amonkhet next turn if I need to. And here's kind of an interesting spot here. So they cast Polukranos Reborn, and they have the mana to pay for Assimilate Essence here. I decided to actually cast the Assimilate Essence here, so I figure, okay, I get to tap them out. If I draw an interaction spell, this line is very, very good for me, because I get to go interact with your Polukranos, maybe a Forest Dispersal, wake up my tokens, and then just bash for a bunch. And if I, don't try that interaction spell, this line's still pretty okay, because I get to resolve the Amonkhet. There's no fear of a counter spell or anything. So this is a rare occasion. I usually don't just run this out and make them pay the 4. I think this is the rare occasion that there's enough things that are good for me here. Again, I could draw the interaction spell, I get to resolve that Amonkhet, and I get some value, I get the 2/2, that I actually do choose to give them the choice, right? Because it is giving them a choice. It's not just like a strict upside. They could choose not to pay the 4, play something else. But I felt like either decision I was fine enough with, and because they have the hidden information, or they don't know what's in my hand, they might make the wrong choice. We draw Breach, which makes this game a lot easier. Pretty nice. I think I just go for the Amonkhet here. Yeah, just to get, maybe hit a land drop or 2. Make them discard something, make them kind of hesitant about attacking with their Polukranos, because now I get to flip something. I could have also cast Eyes there. I think that's reasonable as well. Either spell kind of does a similar thing. They go for the flip here, which is, I won't say like that surprising, but I do think it's good for me here. I am glad that they didn't cast anything that's just, better than them flipping the Worm Coil here. They gain 6 life, but I don't really care that much about that. We get to flip our Amonkhet here almost certainly, because I don't think it's going to be possible that they have 2 things that interact with our creatures here, and we've got a bunch of power coming at it. And we draw our Hordling Broodmate, so that's cool. I go for the Breach first, just to see what happens. I think, sometimes you have stuff that affects combat. Also, this gives me more options to reanimate from the Breach. I get a Death Toucher on my side. And then from there, it's very funny. I actually got this Halo Charge Scob, which, you know, they gave me the combo. I actually ended up not having a Halo Charge Scob in my deck, but I get to now top my Breach, which is kind of sweet. Yeah, and I go for attacking the Amonkhet. I go for the conservative line of attacking all of my creatures at it, just so if they do have a, you know, -2/-2, I do get to just flip it no matter what. I guess they could like sacrifice Pelucranos and have the 2 Reach tokens. That would have been kind of bad. I didn't think about that in the moment, but just something worth noting. Yeah, I choose Zimonidina just as a solo creature here, and I let them have a turn. All right, and here's where some of the fireworks happen. This is a very over the top turn. It was very interesting. My heart raced, and it was a bit of a roller coaster. We'll see what happens. All right, so I cast Breach here, and they, in response, they go C double copying my Breach and my Halo Charge Scob. So this doesn't actually work out the way they want. I actually, in the moment, I thought it was going to be a bigger problem than it was. But basically, the way this works out is their Breach would resolve first, and then they get to, you know, reanimate stuff. But then my Breach resolves second. So even though they would get to reanimate the Halo Charge Scob, put something back on top so they don't deck out, my Breach resolves second, so it doesn't actually matter. So this is where the roller coaster came in. It's a little bit more showy and cool than it actually ended up being, but I did end up just winning this game. We got to, they reanimated some stuff, then we breached again, and that was the game. Game 3 here, start with a very good hand. Just any hand with Amonkhet in it is quite good. Also, we have a 1-drop, so we can refusal a little bit earlier than normal. And by the way, I do just run out the Berserker on turn 1. I tend to run out Berserker on turn 1 whenever I have a Convoke spell in hand. You know, if you don't have Convoke spells in your hand or in your deck, maybe you keep it for some value later. But here I'm just like, okay, I'll get in for a few points. I'll Convoke with it. I think, especially when I have kind of my next few turns spoken for me, I'm going to be casting Amonkhet and maybe Far's Dispersal at some point. I'm cool with just, you know, playing on turn 1. Go for the invasion here. I kind of tank for a second. It's like, I get Traumatic Revelation. That's reasonable too, but it just, you know, next turn I have a pretty good turn lined up here with Traumatic Revelation and any other cheap card. I think it was pretty reasonable. I drew a castable card in my next 2 turns off this Amonkhet, making, you know, my play a little bit more mana efficient. Like if I cast Traumatic Revelation here, I cast Amonkhet next turn, and I'd be delaying my curve by a turn each time. They cast Unsealed Necropolis, getting back only 1 thing, which lands in the graveyard. They cast Glistening Dawn, which, yeah, again, isn't too bad here. I do have Far's Dispersal, so that's not a huge deal. And here I just go for the Traumatic Revelation, see what's up in their hand, see what they have. They have a Hermit, only thing I can take. They have a removal spell. They have a Gift of Completion. And again, as we'll see as this game goes on, the information that I know that they have this Cosmic Hunger actually does make me play a little bit differently. Yeah, I see no attacks here. Oh, obviously, they they just wake up their 4/4s. And this is a pretty good spot for me, right? I've just got a bunch of counter spells. I've got as far as Dispersal. I'm in no rush to flip the Amonkhet. Like, my deck's just going to win eventually. I don't feel pressured into really doing anything just yet. Just sit back, chill, control the game. That's what this deck's all about. Yeah, just say, yeah, Gift Completion. It's not a huge deal for me. I really, really just don't want to be spending my Artistic Refusal on something that's just not that important. And they choose to be a bit conservative here. They only attack with 1 thing. I do go for the Dispersal. Just find interaction spell here. And off of this Far's Dispersal, we have a pretty interesting Surveil decision. So I see Eyes of Gataxias and Nezumi Informant. And I'm not looking for anything in particular right now. Like, there was the previous games where I was aggressively binning spells, trying to hit my land for Breach. I'm fine just kind of playing, like, a value game for a while. I'm not, like, digging to Breach really, really quickly here. And I usually, you want to put, like, the card that draws you into stuff first, and then, you know, whatever after, so you can, like, cast the Eyes, cast the Nezumi Informant. But really, I was thinking, okay, how is my next turn going to play out? And I still did really want to leave up my Artistic Refusal. If I put Eyes on top, I couldn't cast that and leave that up, right? I'd be a mana short. So I actually kind of strangely here thought, okay, I'm going to put the Informant first, Eyes will come later, because I do still want to draw that card. And I think that when you're making these Surveil decisions or Scry decisions, really just think how your next turn or two is going to play out, because that is going to really affect what you want to put on top, right? Like, generally, you're going to want to find spells when you need spells, but actually figuring out how am I going to sequence them, that matters a lot too. Because here, I'm able to keep up both. If I cast the Eyes here, then I won't be able to do this, because I would, you know, I would have 1 less creature and 1 less mana. Notably, too, they discarded an Overgrown Pest, which means their last card in hand is better than Overgrown Pest and better than, you know, it's like their ordering was, Pest is the worst card in my hand, then Cosmic Hunger, and then something else. So that tips me off to be, okay, I have to really pay attention to where I'm pointing this counterspell. I was already careful about where I'm pointing this counterspell or where I'm going to choose to use it, but I'm even more careful here. And I just take 4 here, right? The information of them knowing that they have that removal spell means I don't really have a great block, so I'm not under that much pressure. I'm just going to chill here. I cast the Eyes while still holding up the counter spell. Draw a Final Flourish, which is excellent at this point, because now I'm going to try to engineer a situation where they go for the Cosmic Hunger, I get to sacrifice something in response to the Final Flourish, and kind of, it's not a blowout, but it's a good use of my removal spell, kind of make them use their removal spell in a way that's not that effective, basically. They cast Doombringer, that's good enough for me to use my 1 counter spell, Assimilate Essence. I think if I don't, it's not the most threatening thing in the world, but if I don't counter this, I start to fall behind, and I have to start using my removal spells on their tokens, which I don't really want to do that much, which I'm fine just using that kind of conditional removal spell there. It also frees up a bit of my mana for any turn that I want to tap out at Sorcery Speed, which I'm not going to be doing that often because of Artistic Refusal, but, even still. And I'm just happy, chugging along here, just accruing value as they're hopefully drawing into some lands. Again, I'm not trying to aggressively flip this battle. I'm just chilling. And here I draw a Far's Dispersal, and I could get kind of an aggressive line. I bounce their 4/4. They probably kill something in response, and I do flip the Amonkhet. But again, I just don't really feel the need. Yeah, I could get something. There's nothing amazing in the graveyard to get back with Amonkhet just yet. So I'm just going to chill another turn. See if I can, make them act first, basically. I've got all the answers in the world. I don't really need to be I don't need to be too proactive here. I can just wait for a perfect moment to blow them out. The other reason not to cast as far as Dispersal on their turn is then I do kind of tap out of Artistic Refusal. Here I choose to now flip the battle. I go for, okay, bounce your 4/4, because now I don't have to use another interaction spell to get in, and I can hold up Artistic Refusal next turn. They go for the Cosmic Hunger. I just say, yeah, that's totally fine. You just killed my creature. I don't care that much about it. Get to bin some lands. And I think I do go for the try to flip the Amonkhet at this point, I believe, because I'm able to still keep up Artistic Refusal at this point. Pretty Champion, also a great draw, never a bad draw. Yep, and if they want to eat my 2/2 here, I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm just again, I'm very conservative about where I'm using my interaction spells. I could, win that combat, but it's just not that important for the outcome of this game. I'd rather just hold my removal spell. And my decision here of what to get, I could either get the Etched Host Doombringer or the Overgrown Pest. I have a few cards that, a few non-lands I can hit off Pest. I have the Aetherblade Agent, I think 1 or 2 other things, but I just go for the guaranteed value of draining them for 2. Notably, I can't flip. When you choose to target something with Lazotep Convert, it can't also flip, so the Not Void Hermit, that wouldn't work. I would just be having a 4/4 forever. That's, it's just basically as good as the Doombringer, but the Doombringer is, gets that drain in there. And again, just playing this game as just holding up that Refusal forever. I could have this last turn. I decided not to use this Final Flourish just because I am such in a good position, but it might have been reasonable just to sack this 1/1 to kill this 3/3 and go for a 2-turn lethal. I think I even maybe ponder that here. Let's see what I do. Yeah, I just go for an attack call. I didn't even use the removal spell. I'm like, you know what? Kill my 1/1. That's not a big deal. Yep, that's exactly what happens. And again, I'm rewarded for holding, right? Because now I get to blow out this interaction spell. It wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if I lost my 3/3, but, I'd rather do this because, again, the attack all was still fine, and I get to blow out this this trick here, or this removal spell here. So yeah, basically with this deck, patience is just the name of the game. I think that if that's something that I can point as a salient point, just be waiting. there's points to go for it, but most of the time when you've got so many interaction spells in hand, you just say, I'm cool just not being the first one to blink. And they finish the game with a Vorinclex, not a great card, the 8-mana Vorinclex, but we can't hurt anyways, and that's the game. Alright, game 4 here, we're facing Karuga Companion, and that's, definitely gives me some information too. I definitely want to save my counterspell for that Karuga, or just something big. I assume they're going to have some pretty big plays in there being a Karuga deck. And we have to take a mulligan here. Obviously, I mean, I could keep this and hope to hit an island, but I think going to 6 is probably just slightly better. Our deck is really good. Basically, the better your deck is, the more you should be willing to mulligan. The more card advantage you have in your deck, the more you should be willing to mulligan. Just because the mulligan's going to hurt you a little bit less if your card quality is very high, and you just have cards that you can, card draw to make up for the going down 1 card. I keep a 6-card hand that is, arguably a little bit worse, but I do keep it. And note, I actually bottomed the Ichor Drinker, not my Assimilate Essence. Again, knowing that this Assimilate Essence, I don't have the blue right now, but I know against this deck, I'm going to need it. I'm going to need it at some point. And, if I never draw a blue source, I'm going to lose this game anyways. That 1/1 just isn't going to be that impactful against the Karuga deck, right? I need my more impactful spells. I go for the Traumatic Revelation here, and I see a pretty scary hand, right? So I see Natali that can't be cast right now, but I imagine, in the next 5, 6, 7 turns, they have some fixing in their deck. They put the card in their deck. I assume they're going to be able to cast it. Goreclaw, which, is kind of scary. I could also just take the Serpent Blade creature here, the backup Death Touch creature, the Converted Beast. I thought for a little bit, I was like, I could just counter this Atali at some point. But I decided just to take it out of their hand and just be like, okay, I don't have to worry about it, basically. I don't have to, because if I leave this Atali in hand, yes, I know about it, and yes, I can maybe counter it, but that means I can't use my Assimilate Essence on a creature that I have to answer soon, right? And I don't have any other interaction spells, so this Assimilate Essence in my hand probably has its name on something else. I can't just afford to hold it forever, so I just take the Atali, even though it's the least castable card in their hand here. They put Karuga in hand, which works out well for me, because they don't play the creature on board, they're not pressuring us. I pass the turn, because I'm assuming they're next turn going to cast Scoreclaw or the Converter Beast. I'll counter either of them, that's fine. And this is a big moment, right? This is a big swing. Just countering their first big thing gives me a lot of breathing room. Obviously, drawing Breach the Multiverse really helps me have some sort of plan. But now that first thing that they cast, I got to counter. That was a big point in the game. And then this is kind of why Karuga can be awkward sometimes, because it's like, okay, well, you're not going to play something until turn 3. If they answer it, you can definitely fall a little bit behind. We cast Informants. They ditch, something here. I don't really, again, this is why Informant's so good. If they pitch a land, I'm probably pretty happy. They're probably not that into pitching lands, because they have a bunch of card draw. And, if they pitch a spell, that's good too. They activate their token here, and I decide just to go for the, basically the gain 6. Well, I was going to just say gain 5, but especially if they're going to put the counter here. Just the gain 6 mode of this card, block, maybe buy it back with Unsealed and Necropolis. Maybe I hit 2 things, but I'm okay if I just get back this Nezumi Informant. But maybe I get lucky, which I do. I hit a Preen Champion in my pretty low creature count deck, so that's pretty lucky on my part. I'm actually a little bit surprised that they put the counter on the 6/6, because let's just say I didn't block there. Well, now this Assailant is just a 2/1, right? And it does trade with the, it would have traded with the Nezumi Informant, and of course here it trades the Preening Champion token, so we're in a good spot here. They cast Tidal Terror, which, is something, but I'm not too worried about it. Okay, and now we just go for the Breach turn. This gives them a window to resolve Karuga, but that's kind of okay. And of course, with Breach 2, I forgot to mention, but we do get to go reanimate the Atali, which is pretty big game. I look at the top of their graveyard and maybe consider other options, but, then just go, yep, Atali is the one I'll take. I also take Nezumi Informant. Oh, sorry, I think about taking Nezumi Informant, but then I go, you know what? I'm just going to take the Aerialist, because, it's likely that Atali gets me there. That does win me the game. But, if they answer it, maybe I hit some not so great spells off of it. Maybe I hit one of my counter spells, and that's a whiff. I do want something to peck in the air as I'm controlling the ground, along with my Preening Champion. And the Nezumi Informant's not going to be that great here, because, yes, they discard this non-Karuga card in their hand, but then they're just going to be drawing 3 cards with Karuga, right? It's not like I can really strand them on resources, so I just go for the Aerialist there. And I get some not great hits, right? I get Corruption Tawashi, which, is good. Don't get me wrong. I'm happy to hit that. But then Furlad's Favor is my other card that I'm hitting here, which isn't fantastic, right? It grows my creatures, grows my flyers, which is nice. But it's not just a game-winning Atali by any means. And I get in, I do want to pressure here. I'm still at 20. I have to think about this Tidal Terror pressuring me, but, if they're going to attack with the Tidal Terror, then that means they have to tap their other creatures, which means then they have to think about, well, what if I get hit on the crackback? So I would say I'm firmly in the ahead position, but I'm still worried or still thinking about, okay, how do they get back into this? And one of the ways, I think, especially the way they tapped, made me think, okay, they got a single blue up. I really want to be careful about when I'm attacking with Atali, because the card I'm, of course, thinking of here is Afara's Dispersal. If they can Afara's Dispersal their Atali, especially now that they hit their second mountain, that's a big problem for me. I don't want them to recast that. So I am going to be, I'm really hoping that I get to untap here, with this Atali just being on the battlefield and me having my Final Flourish. Because anytime they go to bounce it, number one, I'm going to be careful about when I attack with Atali. But if they do bounce it just for full, 3 mana, I get to Final Flourish, sack it, and no harm, no foul at that point. And I have a sort of interesting combat decision here, and you can actually see me kind of toying around with what I want to attack with. I end up attacking with Atali, which I think is a mistake in hindsight, because I'm already ahead. I'm attacking with these flyers. They have to answer these flyers. The attack with Atali isn't very good anyways, because they just double block the 6/6 and the 5/4. Yes, I can use Final Flourish, but again, I really don't want to be the one to blink first. I think it's just not very good here. If they do have a Afara's Dispersal, and I go for that line, because if I attack and they double block, I would go for the Final Flourish, I think. And then if they do have the Afara's Dispersal, I didn't have to use my counter spell, and that just puts me in a bad spot, right? It makes me use the resources I don't really want to use here. So I think I should have just been a little more conservative, just attack with the flyers, because I have a 3 or 4 turn clock anyways, with a counter spell and a removal spell in hand. I just don't think I had to go for this. And they do have the Afara's Dispersal, which doesn't work out too poorly for me. I'm still okay with this. I get to kill their Tidal Terror, sack the Atali, still have the counterspell up, but I think it would have been a lot better if I didn't let them use their mana this turn. They'd have to untap, and if they want their Atali back, use 3 of the mana on their turn, right? So that's the downside of this play, and there wasn't much upside. So I think that's one place I would have done differently if I had to go back. Yeah, no, they just have to kind of attack on the ground. I'm fine with this attack. I just go, all right, make some trades. That's totally fine. I can still keep up my refusal. I still got 5 mana plus the token lying around. Yeah, that's totally fine. Now their board's clear. I'm very happy. I've got a bunch of flyers. And I think this is I slam a giant hexproof creature. I'm like, yeah, nope. That's getting countered. And now we're just on a 2-turn clock. And we draw a bunch of busted cards. So yeah, they just scoop it up from there. So yeah, once again, Artistic Refusal, just holding that card really has helped. All right, moving on to the next game. We got the classic combo of Preen Champ plus Invasion of Amonkhet. They play a Daxos, which is not that threatening of a 2-drop. I just go for the Preen Champ here. They play a Zolfirian Lancer. Again, not that big of a deal. Usually, if I didn't have a Invasion of Amonkhet in hand, I would actually just block here. I would go trade my Daxos for my trade Daxos for 2/2 flyer. I keep around a 1/1. I think that's a good exchange, right? I think people actually don't block with their Preen Champion enough. That's part of why the reason the card's so good is you can block with it and come up on that exchange a lot of the time. I decided to cast Invasion of Amonkhet, try to flip that. Unfortunately, actually, we don't mill any creatures, which makes flipping this a little bit less enticing. And so I go, all right, should I even attack it? I wait to see what they discard. I wait to see what I draw. But there is a decision to be had here. By the way, I also tapped in a way that if I drew my Afara's Dispersal, I would be able to cast it. Or, maybe at least, if I don't draw it, I kind of putting that in their head if they're paying attention. I do eventually go say, okay, I'm going to attack the Invasion of Amonkhet. I'm okay taking a few points of damage from these creatures, because next turn if I really want to get a 4/4, I can kill one of their things. Maybe I even play something really good. I sack my token, I Final Flourish, and then I flip the Invasion. That stabilizes me pretty well. And they play an Invasion of Moog. So this is going to shape kind of how the next few turns are paying out. And I don't think I can afford to let them flip it just yet. So I just say, all right, I'll jump with my token here. It's not the most amazing thing, but I don't want you to have that Invasion here. And we draw our breach, so that's something to plan towards. And I do actually just end up attacking this Invasion of Amonkhet, just getting a 4/4. There's nothing in the graveyard, but 4/4 makes their life a little bit difficult, right? It means we can trade with the Lancer. I'm kind of okay at this point if they flip the Moog, like kind of depending on what they do. I'm not gonna go all out, just being like, oh, defend the Moog, trump block to not flip the Moog, because like I said, at this point I'm kind of stable. I've got more resources. That backside of the invasion isn't going to take over the game. So I just say, okay, you know what? Let's just keep on making good trades. If they attack with these, you're like, you know what? That's okay. I'm just going to block with my 4/4. Something to note, too. They played War Story in pre-combat, and that tips me off, right? I go, well, that probably means aerial boost, right? The +2/+2 and flying combat trick. And, that I have that in mind. I don't think it really affects my block very much, but I just go, okay, let's just see what they do. Yep, so I just blocked the Lancer. I let them act first. And they go aerial boost. And I was actually just gonna let this battle flip. But now I just go, you know what? I'm just gonna Final Flourish. I'm gonna Final Flourish, not let the battle flip. I sack my Lazotep Convert, and then we're fine, right? I've got a Preen Champion, a bunch of good interaction spells in hand. This Incubate token. They're left with a 4/4 and a 3/3. I can definitely just contend with that. And now we're in a great spot, right? We're and now I'm very okay with, okay, if they want to keep attacking the battle, hey, that's cool. I can double block this Lancer, which, means, they're not going to be that likely to want to attack with Lancer. And if they have a combat trick or something, well, that, I have Deadly Derision in hand, so I can kind of even entice them into using that combat trick. Yeah, and again here, I could have just pre-combat cast Deadly Derision on this War Story, but I just went, you know what? I'll just kill this Moog after it flips. That's totally fine. This Zolfirian Lancer's attacking me, and I think this is a perfectly fine time just to make a double block. Again, I think people don't block with their Preen Champions enough of the time, and this is a good place. Like, I don't mind trading my Preen Champion or the 3/3 for this Zolfirian Lancer. And in the case that they do have a trick or removal spell, we get to blow them out like this. So this is kind of nice. We get to keep our creatures around, and I think this is better than killing the Flip Moog. It's kind of close, but I think them having a 4/4 and a 3/3, and me having nothing is a little bit worse than me having a 2/2 and a 3/3 and them having this field. Right, it's almost the same, except they have a 4/4 and a 3/3, but I have my creatures. Obviously, the 4/4 gets bigger, but that's okay. All right, and we had our Broodlord. We even hit some graveyard value. We hit their Elish Norn, which is pretty nice. But these breach hits for this draft have been pretty good, I gotta say. Broodlord just goes and gets the Skyclave Aerialist because I already had a counterspell in hand. I didn't feel like I needed another really. Small misstep here, by the way. I Could have just convoked out the aerialist. I could have just tapped my Preen Champion and my 3/3. Don't know why I didn't. I think I just like forgot that I could convoke the card I got with the Brood Lord in the moment. Yeah, they play an Assassin, which, you know, makes their attack like slightly better, but I can also just take it because I'm at 18. It's really not that big a deal. Yeah, they can't even really attack here. And we basically just take over the game from here. I don't think it goes too much longer. We just attack with our flyers, and we end up winning. And here's the last game we're going to look at today. This deck, by the way, did end up trophying. It went 7-1. So, well, yeah, reasonable deck. I think that, or more than reasonable deck even. not surprised with trophy, but I left out a game or two here that you know, the opponent just got mana screwed and nothing really happened. So they attack with their Anchor Drinker. I just say block. Usually if I'm on the draw, I just block, especially in this more controlling deck. It's just generally good to trade off your creatures. Good that so you can you know, just keep pace with them. Maybe if you're a more aggressive deck, you don't do that. In fact, you probably don't want to do that if you're a more aggressive deck, but in my controlling deck, I definitely just trade off my creatures when I can. And here's an interesting decision. So they cast the Zoomy Informant, and I either can discard an Eyes or a Corruption at Tawashi. And you might think against like a red-black deck that's, you know, sometimes red-black decks are kind of aggressive, but this red-black deck's not off to that much of an aggressive start. I actually think I'm going to be more in a, like I'm predicting this game is more going to be about grinding than it is about efficiency. I mean, it's going to be about efficiency to some degree, but basically, the Corruption is a better card in the games that are about grinding. Isaac Ataxius is good there too, but I already have an Isaac Ataxius, I already have a Preen Champion, I have other stuff to play, so I figure I'm going to keep the higher impact card because I think this game is going to go in a way that I can be able to realize and take advantage of its long game potential, right? I don't feel like I need yet another Eyes. Speaking of yet another Eyes, I draw another Eyes. we wake up the Zinker Drinker, get the Incubate going. Yep, they do the same. They get their Anchor Drinker out. Here's our Breach, which we've been very lucky to see all these games. Get the Preen Champ down so I can get on board, start blocking. They get in. I just, once again, just choose to trade. This game's not going to be about racing, so just trade my 2-power creature for their 2-power creature. They play a Stormcaller Rager, which, you know, could get a little bit hairy, considering, you know, if they do have Furnace Rains. We're at the, we've won like 6 games at this point, so I imagine their red-black deck is pretty good. I decide to go for the Isaac Ataxius here rather than just wake up the 2/2. Because, you know, I'm taking a little bit of damage this turn, but next turn I have a much better turn where I can wake up the 2/2 and the 3/3, have some pretty good blocks. They go sacrificing this Informant, which tells me maybe they're a bit land light. They are not committing to playing more stuff to the board. They're instead trying to dig through their deck. So they may have a little bit of a land light hand. We'll see. Cast a Scornblade Berserker, which, you know, is going to put a counter there, and they're going to also be able to... Actually, they misstepped a little bit here. They should have just... They ended up sacking the Berserker to the Rager pre-combat or post-combat, which, yeah, I think they realized they should have just done a pre-combat. Or, sorry, I think maybe they do end of turn here, not after combat. Yeah, and this turn, I don't want to spend the turn getting down Tawashi. I could. I think it could have been reasonable, but I like just waking up my 2 tokens here, and especially now that I have a Forest Dispersal, like, Rager is just such a juicy target. Anything that gets counters on it that you can reset is such a juicy target for a Forest Dispersal, so we're going to have a pretty good turn here. They cast a Thallid, which is good for me, because now because they cast something pre-combat, I get to maybe Dispersal. They don't go for the attack, which, you know, makes sense. They don't want to attack their Rager into my 2 tokens, so I just decide to wake them up. I had a moment of pause. I was like, I could cast Tawashi and get some value out of it, but my hand's not lacking value, right? I just go for the board affecting thing here, flip my tokens and say, you know what, I'm going to win with this Breach of the Multiverse. I don't need to go for max value here. I'd rather just not get tempoed out. All right, drawing Flying Flourish, that's always nice, right? So I get to cast my Eyes, get closer to a land. Land is great here. And now we're just, once again, in the driver's seat. All the good interaction, just sitting back. And they go for Final Flourish on my 2/2, which I'm fine just to say, all right, cool. I just, you know, sacrifice my 2/2, kill your Rager. Now, once again, we're just sitting pretty. They spend the turn here just, you know, activating their Thallid. I'm fine just trading off here. That's totally fine. I don't feel like I want to Dispersal it. Yeah, they can add a token to themselves. And we just go for the Breach here. And I'm pretty sure the game just ends. And if I remember correctly, let's just see. I think I hit another Atali here. yeah. This opponent also had an Atali, but they were no fun and they didn't let us resolve it. So we didn't get to see where we actually were gonna flip. They just said, yeah, that's enough for me. So that's the last game. So thanks so much for watching, everybody. Once again, if you like this format, please let me know, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for hanging out.